Welcome back to Become a Podcast Queen. Today, I want to gift you guys the very first male guest I have ever interviewed on my podcast, which is super cool and exciting because this male guest is special. He's not like any other guy, okay? So let me introduce you to him. He is a reality TV star from the epic show that I love and watch every year, Married at First Sight, Season 7, 2020. This show is also airing in the US, so I think it actually already is airing. I will have a link to the show in the show notes. If you're keen on watching after you hear this interview, I highly recommend it. This man is a top personal trainer, a motivator and wellness coach, and he is Seb Guilhaus. Yay! You can clap your hands now. Seb shares with us his personal story and battle with self-love and acceptance. And I think coming from a male, this is extra and ultra cool because, a lot of women are pretty open with talking about this sort of subject, but not a lot of guys are. So Seb and I actually formed a friendship through the Instagram DMs for quite a few months ago now and got chatting, and he had me on an Instagram live to interview me for his audience. And then he also announced that he was going to start this wellness movement seminar. So it's called SG Wellness Movement Seminar. And months later, after, sending messages back and forth and getting to know each other, he has invited me to be a guest speaker at this event, which is super cool. And there are a panel of amazing speakers as well. So I feel extremely honoured and blessed to even be asked to be a part of this event. What I have to say about Seb is he's such a genuine, good-intentioned, emotionally intelligent and down-to-earth kind of Aussie guy. And I think you can really pick up on his humbleness and his beautiful nature in this interview. So go ahead, have a listen, and listen to the very end because I have another announcement. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. I have a very, very special and famous guest, Seb. Welcome, Seb, to the show.
Thank you, Olivia, you darling.
So for people that do know Seb, you'll know exactly who this is. For people that don't know Seb, Seb is a PT. He is MAFS 2020 participant and also a health and wellness coach. So I'm super excited to have him here today. And he is also the first male on the show, which is even more special, I think. That's super cool. And so I've got a few questions for Seb, and he's like, yep, ask me what you want to ask. And I'm like, cool, I will. So we're going to take it from here. So Seb, can you tell us a little bit about what your life was like before signing up to a national TV show and how your life has changed since being on the show and having now an online presence and this amazing platform and all the things that come with that?
Yes, I can. I mean, the main motivation for going on the show was my awful relationship history. I had been from a long-term committed relationship for 8 years. So I am, if you don't know my personality and my nature, I'm very eccentric. I believe in life experiences. I'm very out there. And so I recently moved in with my old housemate. His name was Jordan, and he was a fanatic MAFS watcher. And
really?
Yes. Before that, I never really was invested in the show. Anyway, he obviously got a glimpse of my nature, my personality, and he advised that why not? Why wouldn't I go on it? And at the time, I was playing semi-professional AFL, and I was also doing a creative arts degree.
Cool.
And it was actually a 6-month casting process, and I really have been about the last few years. For me, I've always been a very, very anxious person.
Really? I think that would surprise a lot of people.
Yes, I think it might, because I've had to do a lot of work. By work, I mean embracing my fears. I literally have been so confined to my thoughts, good and bad, a lot bad, a lot restrictive, for so long, so much self-doubt. My battles with self-love, my anxieties have been so extreme, like I was never able to approach, say, even a girl at a bar and have a normal conversation without being a larrikin or putting on a mask, a persona, or something to protect myself, I guess. And yeah, I've had to do a lot of work. So anyway, sorry.
No, I love it. I don't feel like a lot of people know this about you, so it's fascinating.
Yes. So MAFS. So I thought, all those things considered, why not? It would be an amazing life experience. And I'm all about embracing fears. So yes, disrupting my entire, I was meant to do my football, I was meant to do my studies. that was all going well. I was happy, and I decided to make this choice to embrace this experience. And I mean, it's one of the greatest things. I think it's probably the greatest experience of my life. And I feel like I'm forever growing. It's really allowed me to sort of own myself and take my true self in the direction that I want to take me.
Yeah, I love that. And that's what's, I think, would you agree, has like been part of your drive to help other people do the same?
Absolutely. It's one of the most tragic things to be constrained and halted by yourself. By yourself, not by external influences, by knowing that maybe you could or you can, but you won't allow yourself. And I just wanted to allow that to happen anymore. So
yeah, I love that. So what do you think was holding it back? Was it fear or something else, or a bit of everything?
Deep ingrained fears of lack of self-worth, lack of believing that, for instance, on an emotional level, not deserved of love, on an actuating progress, you're not deserved of success, or not deserved of meeting potential, not deserved of, and that's why my life has been peaks and troughs. I wouldn't know a lot of this, but it has been many, many peaks and troughs, not allowing, starting to succeed, getting into my structure, my regime, and helping myself, and then from that point to help others, and then derailing and hindering my progress. And that terrible
self-sabotage.
Self-sabotage. There it is. That word, God. Yes.
Yeah, I love the honesty. Thank you so much for opening up about that, because like a lot of people, I think, battle with this sort of stuff behind the scenes or internally and are too scared to kind of be external about it. And so I think it's really cool when people like yourself speak up and share your story and just own it, like especially from a male as well, because females, we can tend to be very open, very relational, and it can come quite easy. But for a lot of men, there's like that societal stigma and persona to uphold, that they can't show any weakness or too much emotion or whatever that's all going to mean for them. I imagine that's why you've teamed up with Kikon, which is Drew's, mental health charity. So feel free to tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, Drew, what a sweetheart. As you said, there is, I have been in certain environments, in predominantly male environments, where, although there's the stigma in general, then attached maybe in the sporting environment as well. Imagine the royal ring, the stereotypes. So human beings need to express themselves, male and female, and so, yes, with Drew, we've both gone through our own mental health at this stage of our lives, dedicating ourselves to, I guess, connection and overcoming some of these mental hurdles. So Drew, the founder of Kikon Charity, brilliant, amazing, decided to team up. Yeah.
That's so cool. Did you guys discover this throughout the filming of MAFS, or was this all after the show had finished?
We had our conversations. We gravitated towards each other. So whenever we had an opportunity, it was us two that were really connecting. And we had discussions. It was after the process that we decided that we could, I guess, combine forces in a sense and take things and move things forward. Yeah.
100%.
There was too much going on during the filming to have those sort of discussions.
So what gave you the courage? So if you've been struggling with all this stuff, a lot of your life, the ups and the downs, not feeling worthy, having issues with self-love and all this sort of stuff, like what do you think got you through that? Because I would imagine you'd have to get to a certain point where you would feel, worthy to apply for a show like MAFS, like worthy to fall in love and find someone to love you back and all that sort of stuff. So how did that kind of all eventuate?
Yeah, well, the 2 years prior, I started a creative arts degree, and that did that because I'm a very creative person. Didn't know that.
I picked up on that.
And I needed that creative vent, but also I came to a very, very, my lowest point, I guess, in life. And I had to really look internally, and I had to really work out who I was at my core and where I wanted to take my life, to service myself, to fulfill myself. And that was a process, and it only started a few years ago. And so that environment that I threw myself into with my studies, that really threw me out of my comfort zone. Although I have in the past thrown myself into a public light, I guess, in certain regards as a larrikin and certain things like that, to really get up in front of people and honestly express myself without, as I said, the shield of humour, to really, I guess, grow. because I believe that growth occurs when you are able to stand up, express yourself as your genuine self, and put yourself, it's at the mercy. I mean, it took 2 years of self-development in that environment. And I'm telling you, it's a very hardcore environment that it was. And then I just kept on this path of embracing fears in every regard. Like if I felt really uncomfortable, if I felt the internal head speak or other signs within my body, physical signs, for instance, I knew that was somewhere that I needed to go. It's strange. I'm really picking up on all of these things. And I noticed more and more that when I did go to these places, that normally I would have an excuse, which I would classify that excuse as something else. I'd make a justification for it. But then when I reflected, it came down to fear, and it came down to all the things which I expressed to you before, me lacking in myself. So I developed and threw myself out there and threw myself to the wolves, although it wasn't really to the wolves. It was actually, but in my mind at that stage it was. And I got to a place where, okay, maybe I'm ready for something crazy like this. And
It sounded like you had to kind of embrace the fear to expand that comfort zone. Do you know what I mean? Because when you're wearing a mask and acting a certain way for acceptance and to be comfortable and stuff, like you kind of realize it's only comfortable for so long, hey? And then because you're not being vulnerable, you're not being authentic to who you are, it gets really uncomfortable, and then you have to kind of do something about that. So it sounds like you reached that point of like, I can't just keep doing this and acting this way anymore, and I've just got to be who I am and figure out who that is first and love that person. And by you expanding that, then you were able to, I guess, get the courage to go on something like MAFS. Did you actually think you'd get on the show as well, by the way?
do you know what I thought? Like I have a decent brain in some regards. And I'm very...
Agreed.
I'm very strange. I'm very eccentric, as we use the word. And I've been single for so long, maybe I might be an interesting choice. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I know for me, when I was first watching the show, I was like, okay, here's some tall, attractive dude who seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders. I'm like, how come he has been single for so long? And I think the show did kind of play on that a little bit to kind of pique people's interest. But when you get walked through the journey, it makes total sense. Do you know what I mean? Like when you hear the story and you understand all of that, it does make total sense, because sometimes we need to kind of figure out who we are and love who we are first. Because like when you jump into a relationship, there's massive self-reflection. Like there's no choice in the matter. It is that, like you have to face all the beautiful and ugly parts of yourself and how you fit together with that person and how you don't and everything.
Yeah. And I think it's, and for me, that is it. Like we are going through this at the moment. I am, Liz is making me feel very, very comfortable. But this is new territory, especially for me, but also for her in a sense.
Yeah.
And I am constantly having to come to terms with Liz is really invested in me, and I need to be able to accept that constantly. And it's a constant battle, daily battle for me. Yeah.
Yeah, a growth opportunity for sure. So obviously, guys, he's still together with Liz. I think we gave that away. So were you guys the only, I guess, quote unquote, successful couple from the show, like still together in real life now?
I think so, yes. Yes, I think we are.
Yeah, because I think a couple of people got together after the show, but different partners when it all ended. Yes. When did filming stop, by the way? Was that last year or the start of this year? Because it did air in February 2020.
Yeah, so we've had a long, long break. We finished filming, I think it was the 5th of December. Then we had 2 days in January. So we had a break. Then we had a reunion filming. And then we had a few months break until the actual airing. And especially for us, coming in halfway. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Good on you guys. Okay, so you've been single for 8 years, gone through this massive self-development journey and massive self-reflection, obviously. And then getting on the show, it actually working for you, I suppose. So how did you guys bridge the gap and make it last? Because obviously, I don't know if you guys know this, but Seb used to live in Adelaide and now he's moved down to Sydney, and him and Liz are living together and seeing how that goes, which is great. So how did you guys sustain, like there's been a lot that's been thrown your way in 2020. Not only have you been on this whirlwind, like crazy time on a TV reality show, and then you've also had coronavirus, which kept you guys separated for so long. So how do you navigate all that?
If you have a look at what we've overcome, COVID, a long-distance relationship, and a relationship in the public eye, like...
Yes, we're like a triad. Like, what more can there be?
Well, it's great in a sense because, we can overcome that. We can overcome anything. But for us, and It's amazing. It's probably unique what I'm about to say, but for us, the way we are and the way that we have historically pushed people away to protect ourselves, to the lengths that we have taken to do that, to keep ourselves isolated, the process, the filming, was perfect catalyst for building our relationship.
Really? What do you mean by that? That's fascinating.
Yes, because when we had our little niggles and our tips, where historically it might be enough on the early stages to, the process brought us back through to overcome these barriers, these levels of trust, I guess, to allow these levels of trust to build. Once we left the process, we had overcome more hurdles than we might allow in a normal, day-to-day situation meeting someone.
Yeah. And you can't just run away. And if you do, there's people know about it and there's repercussions. So I guess there's, in a sense, a bit of pressure to have to come back to each other and work it out,
I guess more so to, rather than, maybe taking the easy option and, running away and being frightened and running away, which you might do, we had to be brought back together and to overcome it. And when we did, at every time that we had our little arguments and whatnot, and we came back together, we were stronger. And that continued on and on and on. And then once we'd finished the process, we had such a really great, strong base. That combined with Liz, for me, for what I need as my core character trait is loyalty, my honest belief that someone is not going to betray me in any way. And I knew that with Liz. And so I had that. And so that's what everything else had to develop. I guess everyone has to do that in their own way in terms of phone communication. We're very, is it kinesthetic? Is that touch?
Yeah.
We need that, and we need touch, and we need to be in each other's presence. We didn't have that. Rapidly grow and get these things through FaceTime and through
get creative.
These new skills, and because we had that base, we were able to do that. And now we overcame the COVID. 8-9 weeks we couldn't see each other, and now we're living together, and now we are learning to do that.
Live together, yeah. It's a whole new thing. They say the first year is what do they say? There's a saying, the first year you're ironing out all the creases and it can be extremely uncomfortable, wonderful at the same time.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, which makes total sense. Okay, cool. So with MAFS, that kind of gave you this massive platform, you were known around the country of Australia. What has this platform done for you in your life? How has this changed your life? Because you've gone from a normal person that's not known to a person now that is known. And I assume you get recognized, day-to-day life.
Yeah. I mean, it's been amazing in all regards, but it's also a great responsibility thrust onto you. You have the ability to express yourself and share what you believe in to a large audience. And so with all the growth that's occurred in terms of me throwing myself out there and developing my ability to speak, and with what I have gone through in terms of my own restrictions in my life and my self-sabotage and all of these sorts of things, now I have a burning desire to express myself and to help people overcome what I have sort of gone through if I can.
Yeah.
And it's driven me and continues to drive me to what I'm setting up and what also you're a part of and what I'm spreading day to day. It's fantastic, but it's also a huge responsibility. It's very different, I guess, to my prior life.
Yeah, totally. I can imagine that. So what would you say to someone that was the past version of yourself? So if you just say you came into contact with someone right now who said, yeah, I'm struggling with all the stuff you've struggled with, what kind of pieces of advice or gold nuggets or insights or lessons would you share with that person? If they know that they're in that self-sabotage kind of cycle, they're having trouble loving themselves and wearing this mask to other people and all this sort of stuff, where do they even start with that? What would you recommend, having walked the path yourself? Firstly,
don't actualize all of your thoughts. Create some distance between your negative thoughts and yourself. If you're in a negative mind spiral, if you're trapped inside your head, and also don't allow yourself to be restricted by all the parameters that only you have put in place. I think, along with all of the things which might be commonly known in terms of which are very valid, which are the exercise, the diet and the sleep, because that's your fuel, okay, and that's the efficiency of your system and your brain. So those things, but also things like your environment as well. Are you around people which are open-minded and are helping you grow and, I guess, aiding your mental health? And then you've got other things like your investment in social media, your addictions, whether it's sugar or whether it's stimulus. There are certain force-fed imagery and things that, we don't realize that, boom, 3 hours are gone, we're invested looking at, pictures of how our lives should be. These things put us into, maybe consciously or subconsciously or eventually consciously, into states of mind which don't serve us. And then you retreat. And that's the worst thing I think you can do. I guess initially it might be hard if you're really overwhelmed. I mean, you've gone through this as well, Olivia, in your life.
Indeed.
I think it's starting by really just sitting down with yourself. I think maybe writing if you're in a state and all you can think about is negative things and you're trapped inside your mind, I think getting your thoughts out onto page.
That's a good one.
Yeah. With what you're grateful for, in a sense. Try to steer yourself away from the spiral of sort of negativity which might be containing you. And then change your environment, really identify what's toxic in your life. You have to be I think the key is to be brutally honest with where you're at and who you are and what you want. You need to remove all the layers that maybe society and, our programming might put onto us and get back to your basics. And unfortunately, sometimes it takes until you get, do severe traumatic experience before you see a bright light and you have this awareness that hopefully you don't have to get to that stage, but sometimes you do.
Yeah, sometimes you got to hit rock bottom because then the way is up, right? Like that's not always a bad thing.
Yeah, it really does shine light on what is real and what is not.
Because I know it's so true. Like I love what you said, like separate your thoughts and get out of your own head and write things out. And I think also the other thing is like when it comes to the fear, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen?
Oh yeah.
Like you get to know yourself a bit better. You get to realize that the people you're hanging out with aren't really for you long term, and it makes way for better ones that are better influences. Like, you get to as you said, pull those layers off, start to become more authentic. Start to figure out who the frick you are. What's the worst case scenario that would happen with that?
Yeah, the thing is that because you're used to acting in line with your parameters of what's comfortable, right?
Yeah.
So when you have a choice to make a decision, you've got 9,000 physical, emotional, spiritual senses telling you that, you're going to die if you step outside of these parameters. We only know how to deal with you within this. Your brain only knows about this. Once you do, you begin the process of reprogramming your mind. You expand your potential into new areas and your growth. So you won't die. The thing is, we all need to realize is it's only going to be a positive thing. I mean, unless you're, I don't know, some crazy, really risky thing, which is overtly risky, but that's not the case. These are just actions which don't have a real risk to your life in a sense. All that's going to happen, and you'll find this, you just take the first leap. Once you take the first leap, your brain goes, okay, well, that was possible. We can do that again. And this is the reality. As you know, Olivia, okay, you're a prime example of, instilling habits and programs and systems and over time, and reprogramming yourself. This is the way that it works. And there is no fast forward button.
Unfortunately, sometimes, but it's a good thing in the long run.
Yeah, 100% is a good thing in the long run. Yeah. You
have to go through the discomfort, I think, to be able to reap the rewards, kind of like where you're at now. Like you did all that really radical, like hard self-reflection. Probably didn't feel very good at the time. But over time, like you just kept doing it, kept pushing past that fear. You didn't let it stop you. Like one thing I noticed you said before was when it felt uncomfortable, you could feel it in your body. You just kept going or kept doing it anyway. You didn't let that, put you off and repel you. You just kept going with it.
Exactly.
And like now your life looks great. Do you know what I mean? It was so different. One thing I like about you, Seb, is like you really own who you are and what's kind of going on, which I think is good because I remember when MAFS came out, I think it was more towards the end, there was like an article floating around online talking about Seb's checkered past or something like that. And I was like, this is interesting. Everyone, you're not your past at the same time. Like, it's happened and you've decided to grow from that and you're in a better place for it. Do you know what I mean? So it doesn't have to follow you around forever, and you don't have to still be that person. Not that I really knew who that person was back then anyway, but you don't have to battle those demons if you're willing to work through them, you know?
At the end of the day, we all decide who we want to be. We decide. We make the choices, and we can make the choice, and we make the choice in the moment all the time, every day. You can, no matter where you are, you can make the choice in the moment to push yourself slightly in the direction of where you want to be and who you want to be.
Yeah. And even if it's just a little bit every day, like that's when you get more progress. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to like being too scared to dip your toes in the water and then running away. Because I bet that, you know, when you were starting to change, it didn't happen necessarily. Maybe it did happen overnight. I don't know. But I know for me, it took time. I had to do it in baby steps, but it felt like massive leaps at the time. In hindsight, it wasn't, but it felt like that at the time because we get so used to living by other people's rules, you know, society, that friendship group, how our parents see us, or, you know, how we're perceived by whoever else, you know. So it's about stepping out of that and breaking free of those like rules and chains and realizing, you know, people will either accept you or they won't, and the right ones will, and the ones that don't, they're not right for you anyway. So it's cool.
Yes. Great, fantastic point. I mean, all of the expectations, as I said, you know, the molds and the programming that we have from parents, from society, but the emphasis, there isn't so much, not that I'm, you know, being a victim to society, but there is not much for people. There's not much encouragement for people to get down to their core and to decide to push themselves in the direction of their own passions, of their own beliefs, of what is true to them. We all have this programming, so we slip into a comfortable, again, that word comfort, mold. We usually have these undying passions and these needs to express in certain areas, and we don't pursue it because that's stepping outside of this mold. That's not common. That's not normal. That, for me, that's the key. I think that's what you want to do as well. You want to, you know, share with people and tell people that that's the direction you should be going. Don't stay safe. Don't hold yourself back, and don't hold the world back from your true talents and your true gifts. That might be. That's another thing. Right? That's not fair that's not fair to us. Yeah, that's not fair to us for you to withhold your treasures.
Yeah, I agree. Imagine if you stayed in that place, right? Like for another 5 years, another 10 years, another 20 years, you wouldn't have met Liz. You wouldn't have been on the show. You wouldn't be doing what we're just about to announce in a second. Like, you know, all of that, you wouldn't be living in Sydney probably. Like there's so many things that have happened because you were willing to step into it, like authenticity, and just like realize what made you happy. Do you know what I mean? And probably even question what the heck that was, because you thought it might have been this, and then it might not have ended up being that. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. So someone that would have seen you en masse probably wouldn't have known this about you. They wouldn't have known your story. They would have seen high vibe, like positive, happy, eccentric Seb, and not have ever thought that you were the way that you've just described, you know, feeling like insecure and wearing a mask and all that sort of stuff. So what do you think contributes to being who you are now? Is it just purely owning where you're at, or is there other things as well?
I have gone through so many ups and downs, and I have been through stages of hating myself for what I have sort of done to myself and not allowed myself to achieve and to be, so many times that I just eventually had to make the choice that, you know, I was deserved. And it was a process, but I guess you get to a stage where you need to choose the drive, and the cause, which is ultimately your well-being, is greater than I don't know how to verbalize
It's hard to verbalize it sometimes, isn't it? Because you're like, you know, the experience, the physical experience, but having to put words to it, it gives a different meaning.
I had to make a choice. I got to a stage where I had to make a choice, and I had to try things differently. I got to a point where, you know, I was in such a situation where I needed to decide if I was going to continue on the same trajectory, the up and down trajectory, or I was going to try things differently. And then I identified that fear for me was what I needed to overcome. I identified that, you know, my mind was my thought patterns were not servicing me because of all my underlying issues with self-love, etc.
Yeah.
So I guess from that point onwards, I just really became aware and didn't allow my thoughts to happen and fly past me. I held on to them and I assessed them. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to not do this, or I'm not going to do this because I know where that's stemming from. And I just identified that that's going to lead back down the same route if I don't
do something about it.
Do something about it, yeah.
I imagine that would have been pretty tough too, because you were like, not only, you know, you have all these masculine roles of like being, you know, in PT and then a footballer and all this sort of stuff. So do you think that made things a lot harder for you?
Yeah, well, it's really hard being in leadership roles and always wanting to be, you know, a role model in a sense, and also never wanting to burden anyone. It's a big thing as well. I never in my life ever sought help. I never felt deserved of help. I always dealt with my battles internally. That's probably why not many people know about them because I didn't feel deserved of detracting away from people's time, people's energy, and I didn't want to bring people down. My thing is I want to always uplift people, but I think it's important that everyone knows, just on a sidetrack, that people care for you, and it's really important for you and for them and for your relationship with them that you express the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And you deserve it of expressing that. So these roles, you know, football and personal training, there is no space for. There could be. I'm just saying there isn't. Historically, there's not a space for this level of expression and these sort of, I guess, human condition in those spaces. You have to be guarded and you have to be a leader, and you have to be, you know. Yeah, so yeah, that added another.
That might change. That might be a cultural change that happens over time.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think even people like yourself being in those circles and still doing those things and like naturally changing, it'll give other people permission to do the same. Other guys will go, oh yeah, like Seb's done that. Look how he's acting. I could probably be more like myself too, and it's going to be okay. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I've had a lot of men message me on my.
I bet you have. I can only imagine.
I have, because I've created, as you just said, and that's why, you know, one of my motivators as well, because I'm creating a safe space for men to express themselves. And it's just, you know, out of nowhere, like I'm taken aback because I'm getting these really in-depth messaging expression from men. I just know that this is not common, this is not normal, like in their behavior. And I really honor that. I really feel, it just fills me up knowing that I'm on the right path again, you know.
Yeah. No, that's great, because I feel like, and I've seen it with myself, I've seen it with other people that I know, as soon as you give yourself permission to be who you really are and do the thing that makes you happy, it like automatically gives other people like this awareness of like, wow, they're doing that, I could do that too. Do you know what I mean?
It really does.
And they realize, wow, I can give myself that permission, because I feel like we do limit ourselves so much. So I think especially for the men out there, it's actually really great. And even like Drew, you know, creating Kikon and all that sort of stuff, like him speaking out and like just doing him, I guess, and yourself, it's going to help so many people. And talking of, feel free to tell the people what we're up to.
I really do love what we have covered, because it really does.
It really links in, doesn't it?
It does. So yes, on my path and my travels and over the last few months, all the things we've talked about considered, I've always known that, as we've discussed, that well-being, there are many facets to well-being, contributing factors to well-being, whether it's, you know, relationships, whether it's understanding of the self, whether it's, you know, your need of a creative outlet, what it might be, spiritual connection, habit forming, exercise, diet, all of these things. I believe that happiness, well-being is not black and white. And it's definitely not what the media and society tells us it is, which is looking good, limiting expression, putting on whatever it is, mask or whatever. It's definitely not that. And so what I've done, I guess I've made a fairly bold move to create.
You have.
A seminar, which I hope will be a movement. And
I hope so too. I can see that happening.
I really do hope so. I'm very, very excited by it. But I have accrued, like yourself, Olivia, a superstar. I've accrued superstars and experts and specialists in their fields under each of the categories that I regard as being important for well-being. And woven to weave all of these specialists and their skills together, I have sort of created I'm telling the story of Blake and Blake's life, who's a very, very dear friend of mine. And he has given me permission to express his story and what he's overcome. And he knows each of these people personally. So the seminar is a jam-packed day telling Blake's story and incorporating how Blake has needed the assistance and the guidance and the tools that all of these experts and specialists in each of their own rights and areas have provided him to enrich his life. And so my idea being that, number one, I've told you all that I've struggled, and I've struggled silently, I've struggled within myself, that you don't have to struggle alone. You deserve it of overcoming hurdles. You deserve it of doing things in a like-minded community, and there are resources out there. And also, sometimes you just don't know, because we're all sort of rolling on. Sometimes we get to a state where we're rolling on in life. We might not even be aware of where we might need to be nourished, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can get caught up in everyday life.
Yes.
And forget the wellness of yourself and what that looks like. And yeah, basically like parenting and self-soothing in a lot of ways as well.
Yes, exactly right. I mean, how hard sometimes it is for balance to be achieved, and ignore certain habit forming and structure in our life so that it makes sure that we are nourished in all areas. Like, it's very difficult when we've got a full-time job, we've got family, and we're trying to fit in all these things. And so,
struggle.
Yeah.
So where is this wellness seminar taking place?
Yes. So it's going to be in Sydney City. I will release all of the address and everything like that. And it's going to be from 9 to 5. There's going to be food available. You're going to want to wear your active wear, because we're going to be doing some interesting things throughout the day, physically, mentally, and spiritually, as I've just sort of said. You just need to bring an open mind, and I guarantee that you'll...
Going through an experience.
An experience, exactly right. And you'll be able to pull away from it, which will just enrich your life.
Yeah, I love that. It's so like holistic, do you know what I mean, with the things that are being provided. I don't want to give too much away, but who is this event for? Is this for men, women, any age? Is this, just kind of paint the picture for the people so they know if this event is for them?
This event is for people who just feel that something's missing. Maybe they're feeling just slightly down, slightly out of it, not connected to other people or their environment, not feeling fulfilled in what they're doing possibly. Maybe there's a little bit of a disconnect in their relationships, maybe in terms of the nutrition side of things, might be suffering, the exercise. It's an all-round well-being event. So if you feel that you're not maxing out, I guess, your own...
not like living your best life.
Yeah. Not living your best life. Or you feel something's missing, and you need some invigoration, you need motivation. This is for you, because there are some seriously talented, brilliant people, and they're very inspiring. So, and
I think getting like, for what I'm talking about, and for now that I know the other keynote speakers and what they do and what they're touching on, even for the people that are feeling disconnected from themselves, like their sense of identity and who they are and all that sort of stuff. So it's going to be really good, from what I gather, about helping people connect better to their bodies as well, and their sense of identity, as well as all the external stuff with like relationships and work and all that sort of jazz.
Yes, no, that's brilliantly said. Peeling back all of the layers, all of the attachments. The day is designed, as I've done in my own life, is peel everything back to identify who you are, what you want, where exactly you're at, what makes you happy, what you need. This day is an identifier of all of these things. This is what it is meant for. And from that place, you can then take the tools to go in whatever direction you want to take to be who you want to be.
How did you come up with this idea, by the way? I've never asked you that. It's like, you've had this big event happen, MAFS, and then like this year's been a bit mental, let's be honest. 2020 has been a little bit crazy for everyone, which I think is the perfect timing for this event to be taking place, actually. I can't think of a better time for it to really be happening, so it's great that it's coming together. But what gave you the idea to do this? Did someone say something to you and it sparked an idea, or has this always been something that you've wanted to do in your lifetime, on like a bucket list? How did it all form?
Let me sort of express it like this. I believe that at our base, thinking, feeling human beings I believe back when we were hunter-gatherers,
Yes.
without all the complications, maybe the toxic realms, maybe the stimulus from technology and all these sort of things. Before all of that, I believe that life was simple and the only thing you had to worry about was getting eaten by a T-Rex, for instance. There was the stresses. And I believe with money and all this technology in the world, the way it is today, I believe that it's not natural to us. So we can't just conduct ourselves in this society and expect to be operating at our best and being happy and well at all times. I believe that we need to address the spiritual side of things, the habits, the diet. We need to do all of these things because the world we're living in is not natural to who we are, what we are, which is human beings.
How did the idea drop in? Were you in the shower? Were you driving? Were you exercising? Like, you know how you have like a big thought and you can remember like where you were and what you were doing and it like blows your mind? I
just finished training with my best friends. It sprung on me. I was talking about little habits, and I constantly talk about all these things, and I was like, oh my God, what if we get all of these specialists? What if we get all these experts and all these brilliant people? What if we combine it together? Could we do that in a day? And how could we weave that all together and create something just amazing? Creates a community and creates a movement.
Yeah, I hope that it does create a movement, kind of like mind, body, soul, those sort of big conventions like that. It could be like, obviously yours is quite different to that, but that could be something that, becomes a big movement and a societal and maybe even a cultural movement.
Yeah, 100%. It's all about getting back to you.
Getting back to basics.
Getting back to basics, getting back to yourself, and then working out where you want to go from there and what you need. And the day hopefully will provide.
And I think too, like just on that point, if we live for an average of like 70, 80 years or something, it's actually okay to have these sort of midlife, not necessarily like a crisis, but like not knowing where you're at and where you want to go and what makes you happy. Like it's quite normal, I think, for people to go through something like this. And a day like this can just kind of get you back on track or reignite a bit of that fire or that purpose that you're looking for and searching for. And so I think that's what can be so powerful, because it's actually less about us, like the speakers and you and stuff, and more about like the people that are coming and what they're going to get from it, which is going to be such high value. Like I'm so pumped and excited for it. That's,
again, brilliantly said. So what we will do, what you, Olivia, myself, and the other speakers will do, I mean, I'll speak for myself, I won't speak for everyone else, but we're all on the same page. And what we will do is we will honestly express our truth. We will be as vulnerable as we possibly can and express ourselves. So that is open for others to then understand and get back to their own selves, to feel, that they're safe, to remove hopefully of their barriers, and then assess what they want and where they want to go. And I think that can only be achieved when there is a sharing on that level. And so that's from my perspective, going to be opening myself right up. And I'm sure, Olivia, in your own way and what you're delivering, you will be as well.
Yeah, we're basically just like the facilitator, or like the catalyst for that change, I guess you'd say. So what I wanted to kind of link this all back to was, I've got women, or not even women, listeners, men and women, that listen to my podcast. And a lot of them are really scared about starting their own podcast and actually speaking out and putting their voices out there for anyone and everyone to hear, to criticize, to comment on. And a lot of them are really full of self-doubt and fear of judgment from others. I know this one woman in particular reached out to me. She wants to start her own podcast, but she's scared about talking about her mental health journey. What advice would you give to someone that's going through that? Because I know what I would say, but sometimes it's good to hear it from either a different gender or someone that's, been through like for you, you've been through this quite a lot. Do you know what I mean? Like you're now technically famous. So people know about you. They know a bit about your history. Not a lot of people, of course. You've had to put yourself out there. You're still putting yourself out there. You're creating this event and putting yourself out there and other people out there. So what advice would you give to someone that's struggling with just starting a podcast and hasn't got like 90,000+ people listening and following yet?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say this basically as maybe I can. The key to my happiness has been expressing my true self. So if you're thinking about starting a podcast in a realm which fascinates you, or you want to expose and express to your own journey, for my well-being and for my freedom, my liberation of self, that has occurred through my expression. And that has occurred through embracing fears, because it might be a little bit frightening at first to be vulnerable in that sense. The payoffs are everything.
Yeah.
Everything, what you're capable of, which is everything, is unlocked by taking that plunge and starting to express, I believe.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, thank you so much for that. I think that's going to be really helpful for a lot of people. So I appreciate that. Are there any last words? Anything you want to say? Anything you want to share? Or do you feel like we've covered everything?
Well, I would like a guide on how to be more like Olivia Powell. If you have a video and all the meetings, I want to play it continuously in my home, because you're an exceptional human being. You have been so supportive of me. You've put so much investment into everything. And this is not of me asking, this is of your own will. And so I really congratulate all of your listeners, because they're in the right place.
That's very sweet. Thank you so much, Seb. If people want to buy tickets to this wellness day, obviously if you're overseas, the borders are shut. I'm very sorry, you may not be able to make it. But for the people that obviously also aren't in Melbourne at the moment, people that can come, where would they purchase these tickets to come to the event, to listen to Blake's story, all the speakers, maybe even meet yourself or see yourself there?
Yes. Well, this coming Thursday will be the sale of tickets, and that will be via Ticketek and potentially also through my website. But just keep your eyes peeled. Thursday we start.
Yeah, awesome. Well, once this airs, this particular episode, it will be available by then. So I will link a link to purchase those tickets so they can come along.
Beautiful.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
Alrighty. Thank you so much, Seb. Really, really, really appreciate your time and your story. Thank you for being so vulnerable and open with us.
It's okay. Thank you, Olivia. It was awesome.
We'll see you at the welcome day.
Yes.
How beautiful is Seb? Isn't he awesome? I trust you guys enjoyed listening to this interview. I found it incredibly refreshing hearing this from a male's perspective as well. Now, unfortunately, due to COVID-19 escalating in Sydney in Australia, which is actually the second wave, Seb and his team have decided to postpone this live event, and this announcement came after we had announced the fact that it was going to launch. So it was intended to occur in August 2020, which is next month. However, we're not quite sure when this event will be taking place. Once things settle down and it's safe for people to attend, then the event will be going ahead, and Seb has assured all of us guest speakers that it will be happening. So when it does happen, I will let all of you know, because I'm very excited about this and I would love to see your faces there. So if you're able to attend, come have a chat to me after my talk. I'd love to get to know you. I love to get to know my listeners and form a relationship that's a bit closer with you guys face to face. So I'll leave it there. Have a good one, and I'll see you in the next episode.